What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. I want to thank one of my subscribers for recommending this story to me, as I hadn't previously heard it. Back in the early 90s, two bands who seemed to shake things up were Rage Against the Machine and the Suicidal Tendencies. They even toured together in the 90s, and more recently as well. But something set Suicidal Tendencies vocalist Mike Muir off to the point that he not only slammed Rage Against the Machine in the press, but also wrote a diss track. What happened? Stay tuned to find out. Back in 1992, both Rage Against the Machine and the Suicidal Tendencies would tour Europe together, and first Rage opened for Mike Muir's band in late 1992, and then a year later, Rage headlined their own shows in which both of Mike Muir's bands, including the Suicidal Tendencies and the Infectious Grooves, opened for them. And there seemed to be a few things that set Mike Muir off against Rage. It seemed to stem mostly from an interview that Rage Against the Machine guitarist Tom Morello gave, disparaging the Suicidal Tendencies, referring to them as, I quote, an old band. The other was a stunt the band pulled against the Parents Resource Music Council, or the PMRC, protesting censorship. And in 1993, Rage Against the Machine was out on the Lollapalooza tour. At one stop, the band stood naked on stage for 15 minutes to protest the PMRC, who wanted to censor music, and they're largely responsible for the advisory stickers you see on albums. Now, Muir was upset at Morello's comments and what he saw as hypocrisy, and would use two methods to slam Rage's actions. One involved going to the press to slam the band when he gave an interview to Spin magazine in 1993 saying, "There's a fine line between making a political statement and trying to add to your financial statement." He would also slam the band for going against the PMRC because by 1993 they were largely inactive. And a year later, Muir would use his band Infectious Grooves as an avenue to slam Rage once again. He would pen a diss track for the group's 1994 album titled Groove Family Psycho, which was released on April Fool's Day. It featured a song called Do What I Tell Ya, which took its inspiration from a Rage Against the Machine song called Killing in the Name. The song doesn't specifically call out Rage or any of its members by name, but it leaves little to the imagination. The song would feature the lyrics, "Now you're making your political statement, or are you trying to add to your financial statement? And let's not forget evil corporations, then why is Sony the sponsor of your presentation?" Now, Muir would speak to the LA Times in 1994 ahead of the album's release, clarifying the message of the song, saying, "Here's a band talking about how evil corporations are, and they're signed with one of the biggest corporations in the world. If they wanted to be independent, why didn't they just put their records out on an indie label?" Muir would go on to say, "Don't try and make a political statement because you're in a band. Run for office. Change the world if you think you can," he'd say. The article would also go on to point out that the Infectious Grooves were also signed to Sony through their label Epic Records. And Muir, for his part, would claim that he wasn't criticizing the company and said he's happy to be on the roster, but rather he wanted to point out how Rage's highly touted political views become questionable when it's spoken from a corporate setting. So how did the record label see this feud between two of their artists? Well, the LA Times reached out to Sony's Epic Records, with the company's West Coast president putting out a statement saying, "I believe in peace, love, and understanding as much as the next guy, but I'm not writing the lyrics. I don't think there are any Sony problems with this, and we don't censor our artists," the statement would read. Now, Groove Family Psycho did not receive the same commercial success as the Infectious Grooves' previous albums, and for their part, Rage never really addressed the feud. And Muir, as recently as 2008, was still slamming the band, telling the Cleveland scene, "I think Rage said something about us, talking about the beginning of the feud. So I said what I thought. I think a lot of the times little nerdy kids get an audience, and they like the fact that they can say things, and they think that people really care. And to me, that's just totally fake. Like, dude, are they really a groundbreaking political band if Sony's throwing all kinds of money at it," he'd say. A couple of years later, it seemed like it was water under the bridge as Suicidal Tendencies opened for Rage in South America. As Suicidal Tendencies guitarist Dean Pleasance would tell an interviewer, Rage's manager was like, "Well, I don't know if they want you guys to come," but he asked them, and it had long been forgotten, and the Brazilian people said they wanted Suicidal to come, so we went. "We got there and saw Tom and Zach and said hi, and everything was cool," he'd say. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you guys have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section below. Take care.